Have you ever noticed how the harder you chase something, the more it seems to slip away from you? The promotion, the relationship, the financial breakthrough, the opportunity you keep visualizing and affirming every single day. You repeat the techniques, you stay positive, you try to keep your energy high, and yet there's a quiet frustration growing inside you. It feels like the universe is ignoring you, or worse, testing your patience over and over again. But what if the real problem isn't that you want too much? What if the real problem is how tightly you're holding on? Many people approach manifestation as if life was something that needs to be hunted down and captured. They visualize intensely. They force optimism. They monitor every sign, every coincidence, every delay. And without realizing it, they turn their deepest desires into a constant source of pressure. The mind becomes restless. The body stays tense. And instead of attracting what they want, they begin broadcasting a subtle but powerful signal of lack, urgency, and emotional exhaustion. Here is the paradox that most people never hear about. Manifestation doesn't become powerful when you push harder. It becomes powerful when you finally stop fighting the flow of life, when you release the desperate need to control the timing, the form, and the path of what you want. Something extraordinary begins to shift internally. In this video, you're going to discover why running after your desires often pushes them further away, and why the real secret of quantum manifestation is learning how to let go. Not giving up on your dreams, but releasing the tension that blocks them from reaching you. There is a silent tension that appears in the lives of people who are constantly trying to manifest something important. On the surface, everything seems aligned. They read about the law of attraction. They repeat affirmations. They visualize their desired future with determination. Yet beneath all of that effort, there is a subtle pressure that rarely gets acknowledged. The mind keeps asking when it will finally happen. The body stays alert, waiting for confirmation that the universe has responded. And over time, this quiet vigilance transforms the act of manifestation into something closer to emotional surveillance than inner alignment. The strange part is that this pressure often hides behind the language of positivity. Someone may say they trust the process, yet internally they are counting days, measuring progress, and searching for evidence that things are moving forward. In that state, the desire slowly becomes a reminder of what is missing. Instead of representing possibility, it begins to highlight absence. This is where a delicate distortion starts to form between intention and emotional frequency. From the outside, the desire remains the same, but internally the energy attached to it changes. The person is no longer simply imagining a future experience. They are trying to close a gap that feels uncomfortable in the present moment. That gap becomes charged with impatience, comparison, and subtle doubt. And when the nervous system enters this loop of anticipation and evaluation, the mind starts operating from a state of scarcity without even realizing it. Quantum manifestation is often misunderstood because people assume that the power lies in the intensity of desire. They believe that the more strongly they focus on what they want, the more quickly reality will rearrange itself. But the deeper principle suggests something far more nuanced. It is not the force of wanting that shapes experience. It is the coherence between thought, emotion, and identity. When someone pursues a desire with tension, their thoughts may speak the language of abundance, yet their emotional body continues to rehearse the feeling of not having it. The brain, which constantly scans for patterns that match its internal state, becomes more sensitive to signs of delay and resistance. Small setbacks appear larger. Neutral events begin to look like confirmation that the manifestation is not working. Slowly, the mind becomes entangled in the very absence it is trying to escape. This is why chasing often amplifies distance, not because the universe is withholding anything, but because the internal experience remains anchored in the energy of pursuit rather than the energy of alignment. Pursuit carries urgency. Alignment carries stability. Pursuit asks when. Alignment inhabits the present without turning desire into emotional pressure. There is a subtle psychological shift that begins to happen when a person stops gripping their vision so tightly. The nervous system relaxes. The mind becomes less obsessed with monitoring progress. Attention starts to widen instead of narrowing around one specific outcome. In that widened awareness, new possibilities can appear that were previously invisible. It is similar to the way clarity returns when water stops being stirred. As long as the surface is constantly disturbed, reflections remain distorted. But when movement settles, the environment becomes easier to see. In human experience, something comparable happens when the internal state moves from urgency to openness. Opportunities, ideas, and connections often emerge during moments when the mind is not forcing them. Letting go does not erase desire. It transforms the emotional relationship with it. The vision remains present, but it no longer dominates every moment of awareness. Instead of chasing the future, the individual begins inhabiting the present with a sense of quiet confidence that what is meant to unfold will find its way through unexpected paths. And in that shift from pursuit to presence, the entire dynamic of manifestation begins to change. Beneath the surface of every desire lives an emotional pattern that often goes unnoticed. People usually believe they are struggling with circumstances, timing, or opportunity, but much of the tension surrounding manifestation is actually rooted in the relationship the mind forms with uncertainty. When something deeply meaningful has not yet appeared in life, the human brain begins searching for explanations. It tries to predict outcomes, analyze possibilities, and calculate what might be missing. Over time, this process can quietly transform hope into vigilance. Vigilance feels productive because it creates the illusion of involvement. The mind believes it is helping the process move forward by constantly thinking about the outcome. But internally, this repeated monitoring activates the nervous system in a way that resembles stress. Even when the thoughts sound optimistic, the body may still interpret the situation as unresolved. And when the body remains in that unresolved state long enough, the desire stops feeling like inspiration and begins to feel like pressure. This pressure often develops through subtle emotional habits formed over years of personal experiences. Every disappointment, every delay, every moment when effort did not produce the expected result leaves a small imprint in memory. The mind becomes slightly more cautious each time it approaches something important. As a result, even when a person speaks confidently about the future, their deeper emotional system may still be preparing for the possibility of things going wrong again. In the context of quantum manifestation, this internal contradiction creates a type of energetic noise. Thought may express a clear intention, but emotion continues to circulate signals of anticipation mixed with concern. The field of awareness becomes divided. Part of the mind imagines fulfillment, while another part keeps rehearsing the experience of waiting. When these two states operate simultaneously, the present moment becomes filled with subtle tension. The modern world intensifies this pattern in ways that previous generations rarely experienced. Technology has conditioned the brain to expect immediate feedback. Messages arrive instantly, information appears within seconds, and results often follow actions almost immediately. Because of this conditioning, the absence of quick confirmation can feel unsettling. When a desire does not manifest quickly, the mind instinctively interprets the delay as a problem that must be solved. Yet the deeper rhythms of life rarely move according to the pace of human impatience. Many of the most significant transformations unfold gradually beneath the surface before becoming visible. Seeds remain hidden in the soil long before the first sign of growth appears above the ground. In a similar way, internal alignment often develops invisibly before external circumstances begin to shift. During this invisible phase, the emotional environment within a person becomes far more influential than the strategies they apply on the outside. If the internal atmosphere is filled with urgency, the mind continues to interpret reality through a lens of absence. Small delays appear threatening. Neutral moments feel like confirmation that nothing is happening. But when the internal atmosphere softens, the perception of time begins to change. Without constant monitoring, attention naturally expands. The mind starts noticing experiences that previously went ignored. Conversations, coincidences, creative ideas, and unexpected invitations become easier to recognize when awareness is not trapped in obsessive anticipation. In this state, the relationship with desire begins to evolve. Instead of feeling like something that must be achieved immediately, the vision becomes part of a broader sense of direction. It remains meaningful, but it no longer defines emotional stability. Life continues to unfold around it, carrying moments of learning, connection, and discovery that were previously overshadowed by urgency. This shift from vigilance to openness is subtle but powerful. The desire remains alive, yet the nervous system stops treating it as unfinished business that must be resolved right away. In that calmer environment, coherence between thought and emotion begins to strengthen. The individual no longer broadcasts a signal of waiting or searching. They begin embodying the quiet expectation that what belongs in their life will eventually find its way there. And as this internal coherence deepens, the experience of manifestation slowly transforms from something pursued with effort into something that unfolds with surprising naturalness. There is a moment in the journey of manifestation when something begins to shift in a quiet and unexpected way. At first, nothing external seems dramatically different. Life still unfolds with its usual rhythms, the days continue moving forward, and the desire that once occupied the center of attention remains present somewhere in the background. Yet internally, a subtle transformation begins to take shape. The emotional weight attached to the outcome slowly loosens, and the mind stops gripping the future as if it were something fragile that might disappear if it is not constantly watched. This shift often happens after a long period of trying to control every detail of the process. The mind grows tired of monitoring signs, interpreting delays, and searching for confirmation that the universe has heard the request. There comes a point where the internal pressure becomes too heavy to maintain. In that moment of exhaustion, something unexpected can emerge, a sense of release. Not because the desire has disappeared, but because the constant effort to force it has finally lost its grip. When that release occurs, perception begins to change in ways that are difficult to notice at first. The mind becomes quieter. Instead of continuously projecting into the future, awareness settles more fully into the present moment. Conversations feel less distracted. Small experiences regain a sense of texture and presence. Life starts to feel less like a waiting room and more like an unfolding landscape. Within this calmer internal environment, the relationship with desire becomes fundamentally different. Before, the vision of what was wanted carried a sense of urgency. It felt as though the future needed to arrive quickly in order for emotional balance to be restored. Now the vision remains meaningful, but it no longer dictates the emotional tone of the present. It becomes part of the horizon rather than the center of tension. This is where the deeper paradox of manifestation reveals itself. When the mind is no longer consumed with chasing a specific outcome, attention begins to move more freely through the environment. Instead of scanning reality for proof that the desire is approaching, the mind becomes receptive to a wider range of experiences. Opportunities that once passed unnoticed start to appear with surprising clarity. Sometimes these opportunities do not resemble the original expectation at all. They arrive through different people, unexpected conversations, or subtle changes in direction that would have been ignored when attention was narrowly focused on one specific result. What once looked like delay begins to reveal itself as redirection, and what once felt like absence starts to look more like preparation. The absence of control also changes the way decisions are made. When someone is driven by urgency, choices tend to be influenced by fear of missing the opportunity. There is a constant sense that something must happen quickly, but when urgency dissolves, decisions begin to arise from a deeper sense of coherence. Actions feel less reactive and more aligned with the present reality. This alignment has a powerful effect on how experiences accumulate over time. Instead of forcing outcomes, the individual moves through life in a state of responsiveness. They notice possibilities as they appear and engage with them without the tension of needing them to produce a particular result. In that state, the boundary between intention and experience becomes less rigid. What seemed impossible when the mind was chasing begins to feel natural when the mind relaxes its grip. The desire has not vanished, yet it no longer dominates the emotional landscape. It becomes part of a larger rhythm, where growth, connection, and opportunity emerge through pathways that were previously invisible. As this internal transformation deepens, the idea of manifestation itself begins to change meaning. It is no longer about forcing the universe to deliver something specific. Instead, it becomes a process of aligning inner clarity with the unfolding intelligence of life. And in that alignment, the distance between what is imagined and what eventually appears in reality often becomes much smaller than it once seemed. There is a quiet transformation that unfolds when the internal struggle around a desire finally begins to dissolve. It does not happen all at once, and it rarely announces itself with dramatic realization. Instead, It appears gradually, like the soft change in light when morning replaces night. The same life is still present, the same circumstances continue to exist, but the emotional relationship with those circumstances begins to feel lighter, less entangled, less urgent. For a long time, the mind may have treated the desired outcome as something that needed to arrive in order for life to feel complete. The future carried the weight of emotional fulfillment, and the present moment felt like a temporary space that had to be endured while waiting for something better to appear. In that state, each day becomes subtly conditioned by anticipation. The mind measures progress, interprets events, and constantly compares what exists with what is imagined. When the grip of that anticipation loosens, the present moment regains a kind of depth that had been missing. Attention stops being pulled exclusively toward the horizon and begins to settle into the experiences unfolding right now. Conversations feel more genuine, simple activities regain a sense of presence, and the environment starts revealing details that previously remained unnoticed. This shift does not mean that the desire disappears. The vision of what could be still lives in the background, quietly influencing direction and intention, but it no longer acts as a constant reminder of something that has not yet arrived. Instead, it becomes more like a compass than a destination under pressure. Within this state of openness, the mind becomes more flexible in how it perceives possibilities. When someone is deeply attached to one specific outcome, their perception tends to narrow. They look for one path, one sign, one confirmation that the universe is delivering exactly what they asked for. Any deviation from that expectation can feel like failure or delay, but when attachment softens, the field of perception widens. In that widened awareness, life begins presenting opportunities that previously went unnoticed. A conversation that once would have seemed ordinary now carries a spark of possibility. An unexpected invitation appears that gently shifts direction. An idea emerges during a quiet moment that opens a new perspective on the future. None of these experiences feel forced. They appear as natural extensions of the environment, as if life itself is responding to the calmer state of mind. This responsiveness between internal state and external experience is often described as the essence of quantum manifestation. The concept does not imply that reality bends instantly to every thought, but rather that consciousness and perception are deeply intertwined with the way possibilities unfold. When the internal landscape becomes coherent, the relationship with external events begins to change in subtle but meaningful ways. Instead of interpreting life through the lens of waiting, the individual begins experiencing a quiet sense of participation in the unfolding process. There is less pressure to predict outcomes and more curiosity about how events will evolve. The future is no longer treated as a problem that must be solved immediately, but as a space of potential gradually revealing itself. Over time, this change in perception alters the emotional rhythm of daily life. The nervous system becomes less reactive to uncertainty, allowing patience to replace urgency. Moments that once felt empty or unproductive now carry their own quiet significance. The journey itself becomes richer, not because the destination has been forgotten, but because the mind is no longer sacrificing the present in order to reach it. Within this deeper calm, the original desire often begins to move closer in ways that feel surprisingly natural. Connections form, circumstances shift, and possibilities align through pathways that were difficult to imagine during the earlier period of intense pursuit. What once required constant effort now unfolds with a kind of quiet cooperation between intention and circumstance. This is the subtle elegance hidden inside the principle of letting go. The act of releasing control does not remove desire from life. It removes the tension that once surrounded it. And when that tension dissolves, the path between imagination and experience often becomes clearer, softer, and far more fluid than it ever appeared during the time when everything felt like a chase. At some point in life, many people realize that the greatest weight they have been carrying is not the difficulty of their circumstances, but the pressure they place on the future to rescue them from the present. The desire for change is natural. It reflects growth, imagination, and the human instinct to expand beyond current limitations. Yet when desire becomes tangled with urgency, fear, and constant monitoring, it slowly transforms into something heavy. What once felt like inspiration begins to feel like emotional labor. Throughout this journey, a deeper understanding emerges. Manifestation is not simply about wanting something strongly enough. It is about the internal harmony between what the mind imagines, what the heart feels, and how the nervous system experiences the present moment. When those elements are in conflict, the path forward feels complicated and exhausting. But when they begin to align, the entire relationship with life shifts in quiet and meaningful ways. Letting go does not erase dreams, nor does it mean abandoning the vision of a better future. Instead, it dissolves the tension that once surrounded those dreams. It allows desire to exist without turning it into a measure of self-worth or emotional stability. In that space of calm expectation, life begins to unfold with greater fluidity. Opportunities often arrive through paths that were invisible during the time of constant pursuit. Ideas appear during moments of stillness. Encounters occur that gently redirect the course of events. What once felt delayed begins to reveal its hidden timing, and the individual slowly recognizes that alignment carries far more power than control ever did. What if the very thing you have been chasing so intensely has been waiting for the moment you finally release the pressure around it? If this perspective resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you can continue exploring deeper ideas about consciousness, manifestation, and personal transformation. New insights are shared here regularly, and each video builds on the last. And before you leave, keep watching the video that is appearing on your screen right now. It continues this journey by revealing another hidden principle that quietly shapes the way reality responds to your inner state.